Hello, and a very warm welcome to today's session of the Living Bridge Conversations, the live series brought to you by iGlobal, your multimedia hub for and about global Indians. I'm Tony Patty, your host for today, and I'm joined by Neepa Patel. Let me tell you a bit about Neepa Patel, first of all. Neepa is the official spokesperson and outreach volunteer at BAPS Swaminarayan Mandir in London, popularly known as Neasden Temple, for which I have some very warm and fond memories of from when it was launched and when it first started in 1995. I remember for one particular radio station I worked for, we were doing an outside broadcast from there for the launch of the temple. So I have some very fond memories of the temple and some great memories from over the years. And very fortunate and privileged to have with us today Neepa Patel. Neepa, welcome to the show and thank you for joining us. It's a real pleasure to have you with us. And just before we start, a quick word for our viewers. The show is yours too, my dear friends. So do drop us your comments and questions and we'll pick them up in the course of our conversation as we go along. Neepa, a very warm welcome to you. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much, Tony, and thank you for the invitation.
I have to say, I'm particularly admiring your background there because it looks very placid, very calm, and very holy-like.
So this is our puja room at home, and yes, I thought it would be a fitting venue for the conversation.
Well, it's absolutely lovely, and I think it befits our conversation perfectly. What we're going to be talking about today, Neasden Temple is what it's all about. But more importantly, recently, the weekend just passed, the Prime Minister and Home Secretary were at the Mandir over the weekend for Diwali. So what happened, and what was that all about? Because this is quite a special visit. You don't often get the Home Secretary and then his boss, the Prime Minister, visiting temples willy-nilly, do you? Because this is quite an achievement for you.
Well, we were very honoured to welcome both the Prime Minister and the Home Secretary to Neasden Temple on Sunday to join in with the celebrations. Mr. Johnson's fourth visit to the Neasden Mandir, and I believe his second as Prime Minister. But being able to welcome him during the auspicious festival of Diwali just made this visit a little extra special. Yes, you're right. Wonderful that he could observe the Ankot in the inner sanctum of the Mandir.
Did he participate in some of the traditional things that were going on at the temple that you put on?
Yes, so the Ankot, which literally means mountain of food, is dishes are prepared and offered to the deities to mark the new year as the first meal of the new year, and more importantly, to express our gratitude and thanksgiving for the food that we have been blessed with by their grace. And the Prime Minister brought along a fruit basket from him and his family, which he placed within the Ankot at the central shrine. So that was a lovely gesture on his part.
What was the feeling when you discovered or found out that you're actually going to get the Prime Minister to visit you at the temple? Because it's quite a big thing, really, isn't it?
I think, yes, we felt very privileged. And obviously, it's been a very difficult 20 months. And the Mandir was going to be open for Diwali. And so we felt very honoured that he took the time out, and the Home Secretary took the time out to come and join in with our celebrations.
Did he have questions, and did he have sort of like an inquisitive nature about him, saying, "Right, I'm at the Mandir now. I need to ask some proper, pertinent questions to the members of the temple"? So,
I think it was a fairly relaxed visit. He was, he had a walk around. He was introduced to the various pandemic efforts that the volunteers have taken part in. We also presented him with a hamper for his family, but I think he was quite touched because he received a few items for his young son, a sweatshirt with the Mandir picture and his name, which I think he was quite touched by, and for his his new arrival in a few months' time.
And I think it's probably fair to say that both the Home Secretary and the Prime Minister as far as cultural diversity is concerned, it's something which is very close to their heart, isn't it? And did you feel that whilst you were
Yes.
there?
I think, that their enthusiasm and their warmth, while they were meeting the volunteers, and so graciously, for the Prime Minister, wishing everybody a happy new year. And yes, the warmth did come through, and it was just wonderful to see, have them and host them at the temple.
Well, I'll tell you what, we like to do things slightly differently here at iGlobalnews.com, and we are now going to go behind the scenes, and we managed to capture a video of the Prime Minister at their mandir. Let's have a look at that.
Lovely.
Look at that. I know somebody might be needing practice. Look at that. That's fantastic. Thank you very much.
You might get one.
Thank you. That's very generous. Thank you so much.
Oh.
Thank you.
Oh, that's lovely.
Wilfred,
there you go.
Oh, I wish he was. I'm sorry he's not here. I'll bring him next time. I'll bring him next time. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Absolutely splendid. And this is a look behind the scenes of the Prime Minister receiving those gifts that you spoke about, Neepa. Brilliant. And I know what he's thinking to himself. I couldn't possibly fit into that myself. So Diwali is something which is very, very famous around the world as far as the community is concerned, but in particular for Neasden Temple, because I myself have attended Diwali events there over the years, broadcast from there as well, live on many occasions.
Yes.
And as far as Diwali celebrations at Neasden Temple are concerned at the Mandir this year, were they different to other years? And well, I know you spoke about the lockdown earlier on, and for a very long time, things have been pretty inactive. But how were the Diwali celebrations different this year to other years?
Well, so celebrating lockdown Diwali, last year in a more intimate fashion within our homes, with the puja ceremonies being broadcast into our homes, had its own charm. But I think Diwali is no different. As with any other celebration, it's the people, the place, the atmosphere. And in this instance, the garam jalebi, which, I spend the whole year looking forward to. So we were delighted, that we were able to open up the temple. And as you mentioned, Tony, that Neasden Mandir has hosted some glorious Diwali celebrations. And so in comparison, this year was more scaled down. It was a more restricted affair, but nonetheless, a very welcome opening. And I think our priority was that we wanted to open the mandir for Diwali, but we wanted to open the mandir safely and responsibly. So, we had a certain sort of things that we put in place. We had the Diwali celebrations were extended over 4 days, as opposed to the traditional 2. So we took them into the weekend. We were asking visitors to register on neasdentemple.org, just so that we could gauge, and we could control how many visitors were present at any given time. It goes without saying it was a masked event. Public safety was paramount, and the normal COVID caveats, in terms of if you are displaying symptoms or a member of your family is, please refrain from attending. So, all these things were put in place, and actually, I'm pleased to report that, everything went really well, and everybody was more than happy to follow the rules. The popular Diwali village, which was again scaled down, so everybody still got their garam jalebi, but the food marquee, the Indian street food marquee that everybody turns up for, was all takeaway. So The fireworks were missing this year.
I was going to ask you about the fireworks. It was one of my favorite parts of visiting the temple during Diwali, because the fireworks display was just fantastic and so well organized.
Yes, I mean, the Neasden Temple fireworks displays attended by, you know, numerous people from and the wider community. It's something that everybody does look forward to in the calendar. I mean, this year we made a conscious decision to dispense with the fireworks. It was going to be a poignant Diwali for many. You know, COVID has robbed so many of us of so much, you know, over the last 20 months. And we just felt blessed that we were able to invite families into the mandir during this special time, where they were able to remember their loved ones, you know, within the peace and solace that a mandir can offer them. And we just felt it was more respectful to not have any fireworks this year.
That's a very good move, and one which I totally support as well. Now, if you have just joined us on this live conversation series right here with us on iGlobal, we are talking with Neepa Patel from Neasden Mandir today, and we talk about reflecting on Diwali and, of course, the recent Home Secretary and Prime Minister's visit to the temple as well. Neepa, if I may ask you, the Mandir and the Sanstha at a worldwide level, which you touched on briefly a few moments ago, have been at the heart of many important community outreach activities throughout the pandemic. One or two of which you've already shared with us here today. Just tell us what the response of that has been, and what has the Mandir itself been doing to get in touch with the community and the people in the world.
I mean, before I move on to the question, Tony, I'd just like to say that His Holiness Pramukh Swami Maharaj was very clear about what a mandir is to a community.
Yeah.
And when he inaugurated the Neasden Mandir in 1995, his vision was that the mandir wouldn't simply be a place of worship, but it would stand to serve and help the wider community whenever required. So the Neasden Mandir, over the years under his guidance, has supported many local and national charities and charity drives. And after his passing in 2016, under the guidance of His Holiness Mahant Swami Maharaj. So when the pandemic was declared officially, Mahant Swami Maharaj was very clear in his guidance, you know, that work in unity to do whatever we can to provide a multifaceted support system to help those in need. And that is where the Connect and Care program came into being and was actioned during the pandemic.
It's very much a very good reflection on society, and then action as well, reflection and action. Would that, in your perhaps terms, be the right way to look at this? Because you have been very active in helping the community worldwide as well, haven't you?
Well, yes. I mean, we've got, you know, BAPS has centres and mandirs in over 35 countries. So what, you know, if what we did here in the UK on a national level, so not just London, but, you know, other centres like Leicester, Manchester, Birmingham, to name a few. The Connect and Care programme was a holistic approach to providing support, and, you know, which included hot meals delivery or tiffin deliveries, or just simply running an errand for someone who was vulnerable or shielding. And as the pandemic evolved, you know, so did the support. So the healthcare messaging was provided in Gujarati, English, and Hindi. And I think when we spoke before, I said that we have a hugely talented team of volunteers who very swiftly moved all our weekly assemblies online. And many devotees who live locally do go to the mandir, you know, for the Aarti ceremony. So again, that was all moved online, and, you know, the mandir came to us. So during those weekday Aarti webcasts, the head Swami at the Neasden Mandir, Pujya Yog Vivek Das Swami, he, you know, the healthcare messaging, he would give us bite-sized pieces of information, because not everybody was watching the news, not everybody was keeping up with the press conferences, but they knew that if they tuned in to the Aarti, you know, Yog Vivek Swami would give them in a nutshell of what had been happening, And then it was very important that everybody was informed about why it was important to follow the rules, why it was important to stay indoors. Lockdown was alien to all of us. To be told to stay at home is not something that we've ever had to face.
Indeed.
Yeah. So,
And what a marvelous initiative by the volunteers to use social media to still keep the activities of the mandir very much alive and within people's homes and hearts in the way that they administered that.
yes, no, absolutely. And I think, everybody felt that they were still connected with the mandir. Mandir is such a big part of our lives, but, the Swamis at the mandir also delivered a series of lectures in English, Timeless Hindu Wisdom, based on the Ramayana and Mahabharata, and not just from the United Kingdom, but Swamis from North America, from India took part. And we had, people from different backgrounds, different cultures, different faiths tuning in to these lectures, and they were really warmed by the fact that they could find something like this during which was a very, very difficult time for many people.
Indeed. And very well done to all the great efforts that you and everybody at the temple have made and done over time and continue to do to this day. We're going to take a short break. If you have just joined us, we are talking to Neepa Patel from Neasden Mandir, and what we are talking about is the recent Prime Minister and Home Secretary's visit to the temple, and also reflecting on Diwali, but what of the future as well? We'll find all that out as we interrogate, if you like, and speak with Neepa Patel from the Swaminarayan Mandir here today on the Living Bridge Conversations. And don't forget, your participation is very important as well, so do drop us a line and leave us a message right here. And I'm sure Neepa Patel and myself will be more than happy to respond to that as we go through the program here today. A short break, and we'll be back after this.
iGlobal Radio is the brand new hub of podcasts for and about global Indians. News, views, interviews, wellness, money matters, and much, much more. Tune in to iGlobal Radio at iglobalnews.com.
iGlobal Radio, that's what it's all about. And like I always say, you listen to us and we will return the compliment to you. And today, returning the compliment to you is Neepa Patel. But since we're back, a little bit about these Living Bridge Conversations, which is what we're participating in today. These have been curated at and by iGlobal to bring you many such discussions and deliberations. And they will include many foodie recipes, musical journeys, heartwarming anecdotes, energetic fitness routines, festive fashion, and much, much more. So do stay tuned to iGlobal and at the iGlobal social media channels for updates on our regular streams with an array of guests that embody the British Indian diaspora living bridge. And of course, you, our viewers and listeners, are at the heart of these conversations. So do join in with your questions in the comments box, and we'll pick these up as we go along. So, Neepa, we're back with you again, and in my final few questions of my interrogation with you here today, I jest, forgive me. Now, the centenary celebrations for His Holiness Pramukh Swami Maharaji have resonated the world over, and we've heard so much about Swamiji. Give us some insights into PSM 100 and upcoming events and the future.
So, yes, you're right. His Holiness Pramukh Swami Maharaj, has touched thousands of people across the world. And the Prime Minister most recently on Sunday, shared his sentiment that His Holiness Pramukh Swami Maharaj's contribution to the United Kingdom is incalculable. A sentiment that was shared globally during the memorial assemblies, after his passing in 2016. So PSM 100 is, yes, it's going to be a global event. As I've already alluded to, we have centers across the world. And For us here in the United Kingdom, the plan is to have the celebrations over the summer of next year. We've had to sort of move everything forward by a year because of the pandemic. And then the final celebrations will take place in India in the presence of His Holiness Mahant Swami Maharaj in December. So there are lots of things. I mean, Pramukh Swami Maharaj's maxim in life was that in the joy of others lies our own.
Yes.
And so the celebrations are going to be centered around that primarily. We've got a lot of things planned. What we have learned over the last 20 months is that the best laid plans can come unstuck. And so we're very mindful that, you know, again, we want to be able to celebrate the event safely and celebrate it on as grand a scale as possible within what the current situation at the time is. So, yes, we've got a number of things planned, but I think it's also important to remember that His Holiness Pramukh Swami Maharaj was a spiritual leader.
Yeah.
And, you know, PSM 100, to truly celebrate his life and his teachings, you know, devotees across the world are, and, you know, from his teachings, you know, growing spiritually or doing things to enhance their spiritual growth. And I think that is probably the most touching tribute. So PSM 100, although it will be an event, I think for most of us, it is a continual celebration.
It is, and also what I'm hearing from you is that the focus remains very much on His Holiness and his teachings,
Yes.
and bring that back home to people and to people's minds and hearts.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. You know, Pramukh Swami Maharaj's teachings have been very impactful in our daily lives, and I think you know, he taught by example, and I'd like to just reminds me actually of a prasang, of a short incident.
I was going to ask you. You took the words out of my mouth. I was going to ask you if you could please give us an example, and I'd love to hear it. I'd love to hear it.
In 2014 in India, a young Swami approached His Holiness Pramukh Swami Maharaj and requested and asked him whether he could write "I bless you" on a piece of paper in English. You know, naturally, Pramukh Swami Maharaj was more than happy, as always, more than happy to oblige. He took the pen and paper, he wrote "I bless you" and handed it back to the young Swami. And the young Swami immediately, very naturally, you know, very affectionately said "Bapa," which is an endearing term that we use to address our gurus. And he said, "Bapa, the I is, you know, lowercase, it's small. English isn't a character language like Gujarati and Hindi. The I should be capital, irrelevant of whether it's at the beginning of a sentence or in the middle of a sentence."
Yeah.
And Pramukh Swami Maharaj, without a second of, you know, without pausing for even a second, said, "Always keep the I small. You know, in satsang and in life, always keep the I small." So his teachings were very simple, yet they had a very profound message.
And the message was humble yourself.
Yes, and his, you know, his virtues of simplicity, humility, empathy, kindness, you know, respect, to name a few. He was the embodiment of these virtues. So he not only taught us, but he showed us that, you know, that's how he lived his life. And I think one of the most touching parts of this exchange was the fact that the young Swami felt completely at ease to be able to have this conversation with Pramukh Swami Maharaj. And I think that's what, you know, across the world, people found it very, very easy to connect with him. You know, his simplicity and his humility made him so approachable. So whether it was a small gesture, whether it was a smile or a shared joke, or, you know, whether you were 8 or 80, you know, whether he looked into your eyes and actually was looking deep into your soul, everybody had some connection with him. And I think it's that connection and that how approachable he was, which is why his teachings are so impactful. And I think they will be for generations to come.
And I think there's so much to take away from that today, from what you've shared with us. And that just simple anecdote alone, the I must always remain small. If you
Yes.
think about, there's so much depth in that, isn't there? It's just beautiful just to hear that.
Absolutely. I mean, and just another example, when His Holiness Brahma Maharaj addressed the faith leaders at the United Nations in August 2000, again, his message was very simple, that learn to respect each other, learn to respect each other's faiths, learn to respect each other's differences, and, harmony will follow and everything will fall into place. And again, it's a very simple message of respecting each other. We strive for harmony on a daily basis, whether it's within our own family unit or on the political stage, but respecting one another is again such a simple message, but with such a profound meaning.
And my question was, tell us about the teachings of His Holiness and how they impact our daily lives. And you couldn't have answered it. You couldn't have answered it any better than what you did, Neepa.
Sorry, I preempted, Tony.
No, it's fantastic. And I enjoyed listening to that so much, and so much to take away and learn from that as well. Finally, Neepa, your message for members of the community and people who are watching this, even non-Hindus as well, who wish to get involved and do more with BAPS and learn more about what you do and the great things that BAPS does for the community as well. How can people get in touch with you, learn more about you and your involvement in the community? And whilst you tell us about that, some of your personal highlights as a volunteer as well would be very, very interesting to hear about as well.
So we've obviously the easiest way is, the neasdentemple.org website, baps.org website, which gives you a very comprehensive overview of the work that all the volunteers at BAPS do. You touched upon how people can get involved. Unfortunately, the Mandir is still closed. However, when it does open up, and if you're keeping abreast with the websites, everything will be on there. The news will be on there when we're planning to open up. And once it's open, the weekly assemblies are an ideal way to come along, to see what we're about, to make friends, and then perhaps see what you could contribute, to the volunteers and to what we do. Personally, for me, you touched upon, I think His Holiness Mahant Swami Maharaj teaches us about SUMP, which means unity. And he teaches us that with unity and with SUMP, we can achieve anything, and the results can be completely boundless. So, a recent highlight was the Cycle to Save Lives for the fundraising that the community took part in for India. When India was going through a very difficult time during the pandemic, Cycle to Save Lives was put together over a very, very short space of time. I'm talking days. That didn't happen without the hundreds of volunteers behind that event. We all got together, and it truly, we learned then that we have one goal we had one goal in mind, that we wanted to help our friends, family, and the people of India. And yes, it came together in the space of a couple of days, over a weekend, if I remember correctly. The Just Giving website was completely overwhelmed. We were bowled over by the community and their generosity. 700.
That's testament to your organization, your involvement and dedication. And it's often said that what you do in life sometimes does spill over onto others, even if it does come in the form of emotions and everything else.
No, that's right. Because with them, as a volunteer, I feel, yes, it's hard work, yes, it's commitment, but personally, I feel like I've received much more than I've given. I've received much more in the form of friendship and support and love from the volunteers that I work with. And I think more importantly, when you see the results, as Pramukh Swami Maharaj said, in the joy of others lies our own. And that's so very true, because it is so, so much satisfaction, and it's truly food for the soul. So, volunteerism, although is helping others selflessly, I personally feel that I've probably received much more than I've given.
That's wonderful. And may I take this opportunity on behalf of all of us here at iGlobal to congratulate you and all at the temple for all the great work that you do as well. Now we're going to take a short break, and we're going to be back right after this to have a look at some of the comments and questions that people have shared with us here today in our program.
iGlobal Radio is the brand new hub of podcasts for and about global Indians. News, views, interviews, wellness, money matters, and much, much more. Tune in to iGlobal Radio at iglobalnews.com.
And so to some of the comments. Neepa Patel is with us from BAPS, and some of the comments that have come in fact, have been very complimentary, Neepa, towards you. And I have to say, Krishali Kataria has written in, and Krishali has said, fantastic work by the volunteers at Neasden Temple, which is, again, testament to what you've just said as well.
No, thank you. That's very kind. I think it is testament. I think the volunteers, everyone stepped up, everybody does their bit in whichever way they can. So, we've got as I've touched on before, we've got a huge pool of very, very talented volunteers, and everybody has their forte. And when it's all brought together, as a one big team, the results really are boundless. So
and as you said earlier, Neepa, that people can still get involved through the details that you gave us earlier. Rakesh Shah wrote in to say, excellent program that showcases how our Hindu faith puts into practice its teachings, especially in such testing times. Again, reflecting on what you spoke about earlier, Neepa.
Yes, we touched on the timeless Hindu wisdom. We touched on the webcasts that the Mandir was streaming into our homes. And it is during the very difficult times that we do need to turn to prayer. We do need to turn to spirituality, because that is what is going to carry us through these difficult times. Prayer is a very big part of being a Hindu. But I think during difficult times, it's especially so that we draw upon our faith to help us through.
Neepa Patel, you are the official spokesperson and outreach volunteer at BAPS Shri Mandir in London. Thank you so much, Neepa, for taking time out of your busy schedule to be with us and joining us here at iGlobal for the Living Bridge Conversations. And as we part company and come sadly to the end of our program and show today, what's your message to the world that listens and watches this special program today?
Well, first of all, thank you, Tony. It's my pleasure. And thank you so much for inviting us. I think I'm a very, very small member of this very, very big world. But I think, just live your life morally, just try and get involved. And I think I would probably part on His Holiness Pramukh Swami Maharaj's message that in the joy of others lies our own, and, in the good of others abides our own. If we learn to live our life that way, then I'm sure, we will progress spiritually and morally.
And so with that, it brings us to the end of the show today. And remember, you can also play back any of the past sessions under the videos section of iglobalnews.com or on our Facebook and YouTube channels as well. For more Living Bridge conversations, stay tuned at iglobalnews.com. And before we wrap up, a quick reminder about our very special Diwali essay photography competition. More details available on our social media, as well as invites to send your entries into, and that address is info@iglobal.com. I'll give that to you one more time. You can send your entries into this particular address. That's info@iglobal.com. And with that, we close the show and conclude. And thank you very much, Adi, for your company, your comments, and thank you for watching this. And a huge thank you to Neepa Patel and the team at Swaminarayan Mandir, BAPS. We thank you very much, Adi, for joining us here today. From me, Tony Patty, and to you, bye-bye for now.